Lorraine. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Cara. How are you?
I'm good, but it looks better where you are. Is it like very sunny in Florida? Do you have a coat anywhere near you? What is going on?
No, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful beach day today. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get there. I'm in my car. It's 81 degrees now at 5:43.
I need to check
So,
mine. I think we're maybe at 20 degrees.
yeah, I never liked the cold. I have to be
21.
honest with you. Even when I went on ski trips, I was always the price skier, waiting for everyone in the lodge.
The
I didn't
older
want
I
to go out.
got, the more and more I agreed with that
Yeah.
too. Oh,
I didn't like to go out. Even when I went to Ireland and we went to the some mountains, the Wick Mountains or something. I don't know. I wouldn't get off the bus. I said, no,
we
take a
can look from the
picture.
window with the heat, with the cocoa.
I live in New Jersey. I see green all the time. No, I'm good. Thank you.
I'm so happy you're joining me today from Boca, right? Boca?
Yes, Boca
So,
Raton, Florida.
before we go too far, and I want everyone to know formally who you are, this is Lorraine Fugazzi, artist, but not just artist. You use art as a tool to bring awareness of humanism, which I'm so excited to dive into. And you do this in medicine and in real estate. And I am privileged to have known you for many years now. You are one of the nearest and dearest friends of my mom.
Yes.
And so thank you so much for being here today, Lorraine. What we do usually is start from the beginning. So I'd love to hear a bit about your personal background and how art seeped into the equation.
Sure. Well, as I was mentioning to you before, nothing starts without faith, right? So I've been given God's good graces, and He's provided me with divine connections throughout my life. And your mom was one of those divine connections. And she helped open up a world that I didn't even know existed. So, when we rewind 10 years ago, 2010, it's almost 11 years, Dr. Salvatore and I were working at Staten Island University Hospital in the graduate medical education program. She was a program director, founding program director for a residency program. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but that's
Probably
a
not.
period of
Maybe tell
time.
me.
Yeah, that's a period of time after a medical student graduates from medical school, they have to do their clinical rotations, and that's called a residency program or an internship. And your mom, Dr. Salvatore, started a radiology residency program at Staten Island University Hospital. Um, and I was on the institutional side working for Dr. Jarrett, the chief medical officer at the time. And he hired me to kind of reorganize the graduate medical education um, sponsoring institution, like the institutional side of it that has oversight for all of the residency programs. And so it was just the perfect seeds it was just fertile ground, and the seeds were planted and things just germinated. And, it was because we were all supportive of each other that I was afforded an opportunity to go with your mom to the Harvard Macy Institute, um, where I met with, you know, um, leaders in medical education. And they were involved with medical education curriculum reform. So I keep saying your mom, but Dr. Salvatore had her own project that she was working on. I don't recall what it was at the time, but mine was a faculty research pilot program designed to increase scholarly activity among the faculty, because we were receiving citations for lack of publications, mostly from the accrediting body. And because we were a community teaching hospital rather than an academic medical center, we didn't have those resources that all of these academic medical centers had. So we didn't have a research department. We had a small medical library. So we had to figure out how we were going to help community physicians learn how to publish.
And so why was this publication important? Like, I mean, I'm getting a little bit in a rabbit hole here, but I'm curious about how that fit into like your role at that time. And
So, so my role at the time was to make sure that we met or exceeded the accrediting body standards,
I see.
and some of our programs were receiving citations for lack of scholarly activity. So we needed to address it institutionally. And so that's how I started. And because of my friendship with Dr. Salvatore and the radiology department's willingness to be my beta site, we chose the radiology faculty to say, hey, let's see if we can increase scholarly activity with the radiology faculty and, and see what we can do. So that was my official project at Harvard Macy. And when I got there, I started learning all about this medical education curriculum reform and, the Flexner report and, all of the things of what a doctor's supposed to learn. And, historically it's been see one, do one, teach one, and so that's the way, it's like an apprenticeship model. So that's the way it's been for since the beginning of medicine. And so like the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. So, but the problem with that, as we looked at it, was there's no feeling in there anywhere. See one, do one, teach one. See one, do one, teach one. Well, how do you feel about that? That wasn't in there anywhere, So, they started to, and it wasn't me, it was, the Arnold P. Gold Foundation has money for humanism in medicine. And they award medicine, the grants go all throughout I think it's nationwide. I know for sure it's nationwide, but I don't know if it's international, but just to keep humanism at the forefront of medicine. And so what is humanism? Humanism is just being kind, let's be kind to the patient, and conversely, let's be kind to the clinician, and so I guess back, 2010, maybe before that even, the patient satisfaction surveys were all, coming back with my doctor doesn't care, I don't think my doctor cares, or, very negative, and, no bedside manner, and, I get rushed in and rushed out, and the patient satisfaction scores were low, and the physicians no one was happy. And so the curriculum reform, they needed to incorporate that into the curriculum, because nowhere in the curriculum did it say, let's teach empathy.
So mind blowing. As a social worker, I'm like, oh my God.
So you're expecting these people to graduate from medical school, and all of a sudden they're supposed to have this knowledge that was never imparted upon them. And so how do you teach empathy? And so most people say you can't teach empathy, but I disagree. I think you can teach empathy. And I was convinced that the way to teach empathy was through art. And so I was convinced, as my passion project, my side business over here, I was convinced that the way to teach people to be more empathetic was through art. Now, I didn't know if that was true. It was a hypothesis that I had. And I wasn't an artist or classically or formally trained artist. So I had a lot of catching up to do. So that's when I started.
When you were at Harvard, you had the realization, like, let's insert art into the equation for these residents and see if it increases their empathy. But at that point, you had not done any art yourself. Like, how did the idea of art get into your head there? Was it
just because it was the conversations that were going on around me with the medical school, we had in the room, I was probably the only non-clinician in the room. Most of the people were physicians, and a good majority of them were international leaders in medical education. So these were the people who were deciding what their medical school curriculum was going to look like going forward. Mm-hmm. And even Northwell, who I worked for, was Staten Island, but now it's Northwell. They were building a brand new medical school, and they were changing things and changing a curriculum and making things different. And they were bringing humanism into their curriculum. So it was just the right time. And so I just, capitalized on the opportunity to learn more about art and humanism in medicine. And so I didn't initially go with the residents. I initially went with the faculty, because I don't like to have the residents have so much on their plate. I didn't want, I didn't know, I didn't want to try my experiment out on them. I think they have enough
Yeah.
going on. I didn't want to add to their stress level. And I really didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I was doing. So it was an experiment. And so I set it up that way. And I came across Dr. Betty Edwards' book, Lifelong Learning for the Right Brain.
Yes, you tell me about this.
Yes, and she is awesome. She's like, the Bob Rossi of art, so she's taught so many people how to draw with her techniques. And so that's what I did. I took her book and I used her exercises and I tried them myself. And I said, okay, I think this could work. And I contacted them and she was thrilled, with the thought that we were going to use her techniques to help teach empathy,
And
which
at a medical
was
school, maybe she was a little bit
needed.
surprised in a good way.
She was like, wow, this is awesome. She loved it. And, artists are generally very generous people. Um, and they're generous in spirit and they want to spread happiness and joy. And if it could help someone and make someone's life better, we're all for it. So she said, yes, absolutely, go right ahead. So I said, okay. And so then I devised a workshop and I went back to Harvard Macy as a returning scholar. And I pitched the idea to Dr. Elizabeth Armstrong, who's the director of the Harvard Macy Institute. And she bravely, courageously agreed to let me provide this workshop as an elective for her educator's course. So whoever wanted to sign up could sign up. So it wasn't a mandatory course. And so the people who did sign up, were my guinea pigs, so to speak. And, a few of them, I had some arm twisting, but they were my friends at this point, and I was like, you're going, your mother was probably in the room. You're going, you're going to be there. And so I had a room full of about maybe 10 or 12 people in the room. And so it was kind of evolving over time. They were helping me design the course. And so the first thing that everyone says when I say, okay, we're going to draw. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to draw. If I said to you, come on, Cara, we're going to draw, what would you say?
Something similar.
No, I don't know how to draw. I can't even draw a stick figure. I can't even draw a straight line. And I say, yeah, neither can I, but we're going to give it a try.
Do it.
Yeah, let's try. Let's see what we could do, And so the beauty of the techniques that Dr. Betty Edwards used was her premise is that the left and the right brain, and I say this just, figuratively speaking, the left brain is the science and the right brain is the creative, right? So your left brain is telling your right brain, who are you kidding? You're not an artist. Put that pencil down. You can't draw. You can't do that. So you're constant. So your left brain is much more dominant, obviously. And so what we did was turned the photo of Albert Einstein upside down.
Ah.
Okay. So now your left brain is very confused. It doesn't know what it is. Okay. And so now your left brain is like, what is that? It's just a bunch of lines to your left brain now. And so now you are free to draw what you see, not what you think it should be, or not what you think it should look like, right? So it's just an amazing, transformative process. And then once people, once we flipped it upside down, people didn't have any problem with it. They were just amazed. They were like, oh my God, I didn't even know I could do this. I said, because all you're doing is drawing what you see. And one of the exercises I used later on, I said to people, do you think you could draw this? And they were like, absolutely not. I said, okay. And I gave them a photocopy of a hand. I said, do you think you could do it now? And they were like, oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's you're thinking, how do I show the bending of the finger and the mechanics of it? Like actually Dr. Jabara is doing some of that on her Instagram account. She's using art for radiology. But there are a couple of critical pathways. Number one, you had to get them away from failure. That you cannot fail this course. There is no,
It's so hard. Like,
you're getting, I'm giving you 100. Everyone's getting 100 or an A, whatever it is that you need. No one's failing here. No one's looking, no one's judging, no one's laughing. We're here to have a good time. And you're going to be helping me develop this course. And that's going to help maybe make people more empathetic, or at the very least, we're going to have a good time, right? What's worst case scenario? And so actually what happened was a little bit of both in the class as it evolved through time and time and time. And it ended up growing and growing at Northwell, and I presented at Nurse Executive Leadership, a retreat day, and I made them do postcards. The nurse executive at the time, she purchased watercolor kits for everyone to take with them. So we did postcards, and I said, okay, now write yourself an inspirational message, and you can either give it to me and I'll mail it to you, or you can take it home and put it on the refrigerator, and always have your watercolor nearby in case you need to de-stress, but it's just been such a lovely experiment, and it just developed into the perfect timing with the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education. They started mandating humanism and resident wellness and physician wellness. Physician suicide was on the rise, resident suicide was on the rise. They wanted you to come up with some resident wellness initiatives, and this was one of the ones that we got to use. And I recently used it at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. Shout out to Dr. Soto Green and Dr. Katari for letting me, letting me bring that there. But it's just been a magical ride, and through the years, I've enjoyed it so much that I started taking art lessons, and so I've just improved my own life through art.
I think
And I use it.
I think that first, the whole thing is incredible. Like, I would have never thought that this art and medical intersection could work, could make it to Harvard, could make it across the Northeast hospital system. But one thing especially that you said to me, like in this conversation, was that the first step for those doctors in the room in this like incubation experience was to let them know that they would not fail, that everyone was getting 100. We're going to keep talking about my mom. Like, my mom always says to me, like, I stop myself from doing so many things because I decide that I'm not going to get 100 on them, and so I don't want to do them. Right. How did you, though? Like, you went to Harvard, you went to this woman running this program, and you said, I'm going to do this program and it's not going to fail. Like, how did you get yourself past that hurdle? Is that something that you've ever grappled with yourself, or that's amazing?
I think it's a credit to Dr. Armstrong, I have to tell you, because she gave me one of those, all right, Lorraine, we'll see what you got, but she trusted me. And she said, what was the worst thing that could do? The worst thing that could do was no one would sign up for my course. Right. So they elected to be there. I didn't make them go there. She didn't make them go there. And they were curious. And, if people went to my LinkedIn account, they would see the video of like the physicians working on it at Staten Island University Hospital. But also in the, I asked people for recommendations. And some of the people who wrote recommendations still refer back to their lifelong learning for the right brain exercise at Harvard, Macy, like Dr. Margaret Hay from Australia in Melbourne. So, and she's like, Lorraine teaches people how to think out of the box, and like just and that's the whole thing about empathy, is like you need to take yourself out of yourself and put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? So get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So the doctor, when you go to see the doctor's in charge. You're in the doctor's world. The doctor's very comfortable, but you're very uncomfortable. Right? So then I tell them, and listen, before you go, just remember one thing, how uncomfortable you are at the beginning of this session, okay? And just remember that maybe the patient you're looking at feels that way too. So let's just let them know that right from the beginning, you're not dying. Okay.
That's a
You
great
know,
way to lead any
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, because when you go to a doctor, you're waiting for them to say, you're dying, or the C word, or, regardless, you stubbed your toe, you're waiting, they found something, so let's just get that off the table and let them relax and create a safe environment, I guess, it was the key, is creating a safe environment. Create a safe environment for your patient, create a safe environment for yourself. If you feel like you're getting burnt out, take a time out. Go, go if you with your watercolor kit. It's easily transportable. You just need a cup of water, and your little paint kit comes with a little brush. You don't have to be Monet. It's not going in the Louvre, you know. It's just for you, and it's just to zone out and relax. And it's just been a great, fascinating ride. And it just and the art really has brought joy to so many people. Um, and for me, that is so amazing when I see people, when I give them, they go to my Instagram account. Like today, someone went to my Instagram account, an old friend, and he said, um, I I want the, where did you go? Okay, sorry.
No.
Oh no, please. I should have put this on do not disturb. Okay. Um, he's like, I want that poppy painting. I said, okay, all right, I'll mail it off to you, And he said, what's the cost? I said, the cost is a donation to your favorite charity. And he's like, okay. So it's going to bring him joy, and it's going to bring me joy knowing that, my favorite charities are anything related to protecting women, whether it's when I was back in Staten Island, it was Good Counsel, Home for Unwed Mothers, people, women who were pregnant and their families kicked them out. Your mom actually made a big donation there, your parents, your family. And just anytime you can help someone, it brings you joy to have the painting, and it brings me joy knowing we're making someone else's life better too.
And I think that's a big part of the value add for these doctors too, actually, when they learned this drawing exercise. You mentioned that like your mentor in this Harvard um, experience trusted you. And I think the extension of an opportunity to someone where there's room for them to grow and
Right.
not officially fail, but like maybe in their own concept of it, kind of like not do it perfectly. It's like,
Right.
I think that extends to like freedom in like your practice too. Like it's not a just, what were those 3 words again of like see it, repeat it, something?
Oh, it's see one, do one, teach one.
Right. And that's very like an animal can do that. Like I can throw the ball to our new puppy Levi and she'll bring it back after we repeat it enough times. But I feel like that art exercise is like, no, we trust you as a physician with the knowledge we've given you to apply it to each person as a human. Like I
Right.
just see how that creates so many ripple effects that you should
Right.
be so like proud of. And so I'd like to ask you a little bit about like what it does matter for patients that doctors are experiencing stress relief and joy. And you spoke to it a little bit, but maybe you could speak to, I think you said maybe at Northwell or at one of the hospitals you worked with, you had this watercolor thing and there
Oh, that was at
other,
Rutgers.
yeah,
Right.
let's go there.
Watercolor Wednesday. So Watercolor Wednesday. So we needed some one of the sadly, one of the residents when I was there committed suicide, and it devastated me. It bothered me. I never met the young man, but it really bothered me to the core. And I said, we need watercolors. We need paint, and they were like, okay, Lorraine, you need paint. Okay.
We'll get you
For some
paint.
reason, people trust me, Dr. Soto Green was also a Harvard Macy graduate, so, we all went to the Harvard Macy and we're all drinking the same Kool-Aid. So it was nice that she trusted
Yes.
me. And so, I, we came up with the budget and we ordered a bunch of watercolors, and I had to actually I wanted to have like watercolor Wednesday, but also like a wine and cheese kind of party. There's
Yeah.
also, so because they don't get to socialize very much,
Right.
and so I was able to get my liquor license server through Rutgers. Like I was able to like take this online course or something. So I was able to serve, a glass of wine with the watercolor and it Wednesday and everything. And it just took off. And it was so nice because it was funny because Dr. Katari thought we started two initiatives. One was Yoga Tuesday and the other was Watercolor Wednesday. And he said, no one's coming to Watercolor Wednesday. I said, you'll see, you'll see. And sure enough, it was like standing room only. And he's like, oh, probably from the wine and cheese. I'm like, no, people love it. They just love it. It's so much fun. And then we hang up the paintings like when you're a little kid and your mom puts it on
Oh,
the
it makes me so
refrigerator, your dad
proud.
puts it on the refrigerator. And we hung them up all around and they were so proud of their artwork. It was awesome. We had a great time. And actually when I left there, it continued with the medical school picked it up. The humanism, I think they had a humanism department in Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. Tanya took it over and it continued for quite some time after I left. So that just brought me joy all over again.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll bring it anywhere I go.
And as
Anywhere I
you're
go.
already doing, I'm sure, in Florida in your new stomping grounds.
Well, you know what? I just finished consulting work, and for the past 3 years, I was working on starting a new residency program with 3 hospitals in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey. So they went from a community hospital to a teaching hospital, and that was a huge endeavor. And so they didn't have time for Watercolor Wednesday. But they were just like, oh my goodness, this is so overwhelming. But I'll go back there one day and give them something, or maybe a Zoom call I could do with them. But here in Florida, I actually started doing lunch and learns for real estate because now I took a pivotal role as a licensed realtor here in Boca Raton, Florida. During the COVID situation, GME is a little slow. So in my prior life, I was involved with real estate sales and real estate appraisal. So I just went and I got I took the course online and I got my license and now I'm selling real estate. But Dr. J.D. Suarez at Westchester General Medical Center in Miami called me up and said, hey, Lorraine, can you come give a lunch and learn on real estate investing? I said, sure, no problem. So that's my new journey, I guess, educating residents. Yeah, educating residents. And actually there was some faculty in the room, educating them on real estate investing. So I'm taking my MBA in finance, my real estate experience, my art and humanism, and my master's in education, and I'm putting it all together and putting the show on the road.
It's so cool. We take this course in social work called Human Behavior and the Social Environment, and it's all about like these theories that help you understand how you relate to the space around you. And one of the most important things as we grow up year by year is that we're piecing together almost retrospectively what has brought our story to what it is and how we refine it as we go. And so the ability to wear a lot of hats, I think, is really cool, and it speaks to like this creativity that has been the underlying kind of theme throughout.
Right.
I'd love to ask you a little bit about, you had mentioned a role model to me, maybe Lynn Travis Stender.
Oh, right.
How did she fit
My
into
art
this?
teachers. I have to shout out to SMB Studios in Staten Island, New York. I started studying there first, and then when I moved to Florida, I studied under Lynn Stender. And Lynn Stender, she's a very famous artist. And fun fact, her sister-in-law is Susie Orman, but that's besides the fact. But it's just she's an amazingly talented artist, and I had the opportunity with a few other women. We took art classes with her once a week, and she kind of unleashed my unbridled creativity, because I mean, you've seen some of my artwork. It's out there, Kara. You know,
In
like,
the best
I don't
ways.
know if
I've
you.
come to appreciate it more and more, I think, as I've gotten older.
So some of it is just like, oh, and so I would say to her, you know, if I'm left to my own devices, you know, if the messier it gets, the better off I like it. And I started, you know, I was experimenting with crepe paper and tissue paper. For whatever reason, I was involved. Like that week, I wanted to try paper and glue and Mod Podge and I don't know, mixed media. And so I was all going crazy with myself. And I said, is this crazy or is this art? She's like, no, it's definitely art. Keep going. I said, okay. I think there's a fine line between crazy and art. So, you know, you have to, I was always checking myself with her, but she always encouraged me to just let it go. You know, once you try to control it, it just doesn't come out right. And watercolor is the best teacher of that, because watercolor doesn't listen to you. Watercolor has its own path. Watercolor does its own thing, and you just have to let it go.
Is
You
that
see
your
some of
favorite medium?
you see some of my paintings, right? They started out as one thing, and then before you know it, they were something totally different. I don't
I
know what's
did.
coming
It
out.
was mind blowing. Is that why you choose watercolor? Like, do you like the unexpected outcome, kind of?
You know something? It's funny because I actually prefer acrylic, and I prefer acrylic because acrylic dries very quickly. Okay, and acrylic does what you tell it to do. So it goes where you want it to go. You could mix it with a bunch of different fixatives, and it could be hard or soft or shiny or dull, you know. But um, right at the moment, I don't have a big art studio. So I'm using watercolor because I don't want to destroy my home with acrylic. So and watercolor is probably more challenging. I mean, oil the one you the that red painting that's hanging in the Salvatore residence is
Yes.
oil paint, and the oil paints are beautiful. I mean, if Einstein is an oil painting, the woman in the bed is an oil paint. I mean, some of the oil paintings are so rich, and so those are the museum quality type paintings. You know, you see oil paints. You don't see. I mean, maybe in the modern museums, I couldn't say for sure, but my favorite medium is mixed media, because I just like to grab whatever I see and just put it in there. So if I start with watercolor and it's not working out, I'll cover it. I'll cover my mistakes with acrylic.
Oh my gosh.
And then if that doesn't work out, then I'll get like the quilling. Did you see the quilling? The quilling is like, it's a whole nother level of artwork. It's really
Is
it's
that the one with the
really
papers? I wanted to ask you about that.
yes,
Okay, so it's
yes.
called quilling.
Quilling,
Definitely tell me more about this.
Quilling. Yeah, quilling. Quilling is so beautiful. You saw the slips of paper, right? So you get,
Yes.
so yeah, so it comes in a nice neat package, but then, you know, when you're pulling them apart, all of a sudden now you have a hot mess in front of you, and you're sitting there, and it started with I guess a bird's feather. They use the quill of the bird's feather, like a point, and they take a strip of paper and they just turn it into a circle. Okay. And then they just like pinch it, or, you know, shape it, or put, you know, make it into a flower. You know, you'll see people who are far more advanced at quilling than I am, but I used it to my advantage because sometimes I made a mistake, and the only thing that would make it better was quilling, you know. So so quilling was one of my go-tos when I couldn't rescue a painting because anything I if I put quilling on anything, people want to buy it.
Because it's so cool. It's so, like, I don't know,
I
different.
don't have any. I don't even own any. They're gone. I make them. They're gone. People. Can I order one? I said, oh no, it takes so long. It's so time consuming. Oh, okay, I'll do it. You know,
All the
but
time.
it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and I enjoy it. Yeah, but you know, I'll take whatever I can get. I'm like the MacGyver of the art world.
That's the best way to be, though. So if you
Yeah.
were going to give advice to Well, it could be an artist, but it could really be anyone who's just like a little bit scared of trying. Like how do you push past that?
Well, I think that you have to say to yourself, it's not going into a museum, number one. Okay. And these famous artists, they spent it's 10,000 hours in order to be an expert at something, right? 10,000 hours, not 10 seconds. Okay. People
Mhm.
think when you give them a paintbrush, they're going to be all of a sudden they're expected to be like Leonardo da Vinci. Well, no, you're not. You just picked up a paintbrush. You're going to look like you're in kindergarten. Like, let's just like manage those expectations. Like, you know, just because you're using the same tools doesn't mean you're going to have the same talent, right? So
Right.
if you want to be good at it, you have to keep doing it. And how do you just have to keep practicing if that's something you want? But it could be that you just want to use it as an exercise to de-stress. And I would encourage everyone, you can go to the art store, you can go to Michael's, okay? And for about $20, you could buy paper and art, watercolor, and you need a cup of water, and that's it. And just sit there and paint. I don't care. Paint water, you know, paint the ocean. I will tell you this though, what I learned, you need a horizon line when you do that.
That's the
Okay.
trick.
That's the only thing you have to know. Draw the horizon line where the sky meets the ocean. Wherever it is, that's the sky, that's the ocean. All you have to
Cool.
know.
You should remember it. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And all of a sudden now all of a sudden you're going to be a beautiful landscape artist.
I'm just gonna go find. We don't have ocean here, but I'll go find a pond and make the
You
horizon.
could do that,
And
but you could do, something. It's so, I mean, there are so many things. I should post one up there. How to make a tree in 6 steps. I mean, if you have mountains, it's like in watercolor, it's 6 step. It's literally a brown line and then just like dashes of green on white paper. It's a beautiful tree.
that's so cool, and it's so satisfying to create something. But I think one of the the great takeaways of what you said just now for me is that like sometimes you just have to refocus what the goal is. Like to say
Yeah,
that the Met, is your goal with your artwork. I mean, for some people, sure, but like for me,
yeah.
it's going to keep me from doing it.
No,
And that comes up in the business world too. Like I think, um, if the goal is to do the right thing versus the goal being perfection, I think you're going to have employees who do a better job ultimately than the ones who are going to cut corners or lie or focusing on the wrong goal is like very problematic no matter where you are, and
right,
it keeps you
right.
from just being your full self in any capacity, art included is what I'm getting from you.
Exactly. So, you have to decide, do I want, is art going to be my career? Then yes, I would suggest that you go find the best teachers, enroll in an art school and then build your portfolio. But actually SMB in Staten Island helps young kids start, and then he helps the teenagers and they build portfolios and they use those to apply for colleges. So he's doing a great job over there. He's an excellent artist. I really enjoyed my time with him. But then I relocated here, so I had to find a new teacher. um, but I've been just so blessed. I've been in God's good grace, and he's provided me with many favors. I mean, my family, my friends, um, my son Matthew, of course. If he's always been such a joy that he gave me the freedom to explore all of these opportunities, right?
Mhm.
So if he needed me at home, I would not have been able to take these journeys. So I am grateful to him as well, you know.
Yes.
Um,
And it's teaching the world a lot of awesome stuff with where your mind applies this art knowledge. So I'd love to ask, um, you did this incredible work of applying art and drawing and, just a little bit of fun and joy to the medical landscape.
mhm.
Do you think that other industries or that other businesses, corporations, anyone really should be doing something with art that they're not currently doing?
Well, I honestly don't know what corporate America is working on these days. But I would say yes. I would say, call your local art schools and say, please give us an art workshop just so we could have fun and laugh. And it builds camaraderie, you know. It does. It builds camaraderie. I think I did it. The rehab department, they wanted to give their staff like a fun day, just a day of fun. I mean, healthcare is very stressful. It's stressful for the physicians and the clinicians and the nurses. It's stressful for everyone, even the unit clerks and the housekeeping. It's just a stressful environment, and so I think that anything that you could bring in any environment, like especially corporate America, where I think just gray. When I think of corporate America, I think gray. Like I see gray, like Herman Miller partitions, and I don't even know if they have that anymore, but that's what I think of.
Pre-COVID,
like
we were a
everything
little
is
bit more
gray.
open than that, but still a
Oh,
gray tone,
yeah,
I would say.
right. Right, like the Bloomberg had the open bull pit there, but yeah, everything was gray, and that's probably why I like Florida so much. It's I'm living in color down here in Miami. It's so colorful, and Boca, the flowers are always blooming, and it's just so nice. It's getting a little dark in here now. Let me see if I can find the
You can
light.
see the glow of my laptop on my screen too as the sun definitely sets.
Oh, okay.
But
I found the light in the car.
there
Okay.
you go. And I think you make a great point too of its applicability to other industries. We started this conversation with the need for Staten Island to be doing more research. And so I feel like in that context too, like, change management is hard. Change makes people uncomfortable, resistant, like lack confidence. And so to insert art into that, great way to make people just kind of like almost even more shaken up, but like so much so that it becomes a joyful and fun experience. Like so the right
Right.
kind
So
of shaking up.
they probably were like, oh, she wants to talk about the FRPP, not the lifelong learning for the right brain. We'll do it.
We'll do it.
As long as she doesn't make us do that artwork, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll write an article. We'll do it.
There you go. No, but I do think that's a cool way to when people's brains need to necessarily adjust and possibly quickly, using that as an interaction to model your brain shifting or the balance of the left and the right
It's
influence
true.
could be
But
very valuable.
there was actually a book or maybe a movie where the woman's brain was on fire. Did you ever?
I feel like
It's
I would
like
see it now,
brain
but I
on
don't think
fire,
I've seen it.
brain on fire, or something like that. Like her brain was literally on fire. Like her left brain stopped, and she was able to do all this artwork that she never was able to do before. I do forget the name of it. I'm sorry. It's a TED Talk. There's a TED Talk on it, and
Okay.
it's just fascinating. And so there's something to it. When you trick the left brain, you turn it upside down. And I tell people, oh, you want to see a different way of looking at things? Turn it upside down. All of a sudden, one thing that you're using, becomes something else, right? And I used it in one of the nurses' presentations. I said, let's take a bedpan, for example, okay? A bedpan. It looks like, it's a bedpan, but let's just say we need a potato chip bowl. We're going to use a new bedpan, okay?
Yes.
Like turn it upside down and now it's a stand. You could put your computer monitor on top of it and make it a little higher. So you just turn things upside down and all of a sudden they become something else. It's just these preconceived notions of what things are and what their function is that limit people. And so once you shake things up, oh, you never know what's going to happen.
And I think that's what made such a difference of you being in the room at that institute too, is like you said, you were surrounded by people with a specific type of education in medicine.
Right.
You came in with this
Right.
totally different context and you
Yes.
flip it upside down so much more readily because
Right.
of that. And so I think I've always been a fan of inserting ourselves into spaces that don't intuitively make sense and then proving
Right.
later on
Right.
that it was
Well,
a good
there's a lot
idea.
of there's a lot of hybrid and cross training. And now, when medical simulation came about because of the aviation industry, right? So they're saying, well, gee, if a pilot needs to go do simulation training, why shouldn't a doctor need to do it, you know? And so that's
Yeah,
how yeah, medical simulation came about. And that's also another way for them to switch roles, because when they're running a scenario, they'll say, okay, you're not the doctor, today you're the nurse, and today you're the doctor, and today you're the unit clerk, and today you're the housekeeper, you know? And
that's
so
so
they put
cool.
people in different roles. It is cool, and I think that helped a lot also. So there were a lot of different initiatives, with Joint Commission, with the accrediting bodies, the regulatory agencies. Everyone was demanding that humanism come back. And, you know, I was just a bit player, maybe this big, in, you know, hopefully changing some lives and making people happy.
Oh,
That's
I think
it.
it was a bit bigger than that, but I love how we have really come full circle in this conversation. I feel like I know you so much better than I did before, and I'm so
Well,
thankful to have got to share
thank you
this.
for
Now,
having me.
so we started with those three things again that I'm never going to remember that a doctor has to do pretty robotically, and I'm going to flip them upside down, and I'm going to ask you three final things, which are, what inspires you? What do you want people to leave knowing about you, and what are you looking forward to?
Um, okay, so I forgot the three questions
I
already. What was
had
the first one?
to practice it in my head while we were talking. So the first one was, what inspires you?
What inspires me? I think just joy. I think, you know, being joyful and bringing people joy, that makes me happy. It inspires me. You know, I there are days that I don't, you know, I'm not always joyful. And like today was one of those days. Earlier I was like really dragging my feet. Um, and I spent some time in my art world, in my happy place. And you know, I was painting and posting and painting and posting and painting and posting. I'm thinking people are going to say, doesn't she have anything else to do with her life? But it brought me to a happier place, you know. And so, and especially when I got the call saying I want that poppy piece, so then that just lit up my world, you know. So
Yes,
it's just joy. It's sharing joy. That inspires me. Making sure everybody's happy.
I love
Life is
that.
too short. Life is too short to be unhappy.
It absolutely is. And so the next thing was, what do you want people to leave knowing about you specifically? If you had like one little takeaway on who is Lorraine.
I'm intellectually curious, so I'm always going to ask people. If you see me, you know, my son will often say, "Mom, you're staring," but I'm fascinated by everything. You know, like how do they do that? Like I love to know the process. So I started even posting the process. You know, what my painting started as and what they ended up as, because I really enjoy when artists do that. So then I can learn from them. Um, so it just always, for me, I'm intellectually curious, and I'll be a lifelong learner, um, until I'm not here anymore. And
I
maybe
think
even
that's
then
a pretty
I'll
awesome
still
goal.
be asking the big guy. So tell me again how this all works.
Yes. Yeah, always inquisitor. And
I
so
am. I am.
on the last question then is, what are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to seeing what the next chapter of my life brings, because now my birthday is on Friday. So that's always a
Happy
day of,
birthday.
thank you. That's always a day of reflection, you know? Am I where I want to be? Am I going in the right direction? Am I giving, you know, God has given me many gifts. And so then I have to give my gifts back to him. You know, am I staying true to my faith and my family and my friends? And that's really what I'm looking forward to. How can I serve more?
I
That's
love
what I'm
that.
looking forward to. Yeah.
I'll be thinking about you on Friday going into this Valentine's weekend. What a cool time to have a birthday. That's so
I
sweet.
know. I know. I think that, well, it's Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
Even better. That is
Yes.
such a cool
Abe and
birthday
I,
to share.
yeah, Abe and I have a lot in common. And yeah, and Valentine's, I'm a real sweetheart. So there you go. I'm
It
full of
worked out.
love and joy and happiness, and not always, but you know, if I'm not, you'll find me in my art world.
Oh, Lorraine, it's been so nice. I mean, for years it's been so nice to get to grow up and see you as an example and know you. And I feel like this is like if it was July and we were in your backyard for a barbecue in Jersey, catching up, but also
I
learning
know.
so much.
I
And
know. I know. We had so much fun. I'm so glad you were a part of our family, and we were a part of your family for so long. And I miss you guys so much.
oh, we miss you too. Thank you, Lorraine.